Welcome back to the deep dive. You know that really deep human urge we all have, the one that just, well, pushes us to want answers, especially for the really big mysteries like life, death, what it's all about.
Absolutely, that fundamental curiosity.
Well, today we're tackling that head on. You've sent over this incredible set of ancient texts, Buddhist discourses, that dive right into one of the biggest mysteries.
Yeah.
What actually happens to a fully enlightened being after they die?
Exactly. We're looking specifically at a collection called the Abyākatavaggo, which is part of the Sutta Nikaya. And what's fascinating isn't just the question itself.
Right.
It's the teaching behind why certain questions like this are left, well, undeclared. The original term is avyākata.
Undeclared.
And the silence, the not answering, that actually tells us something really profound.
So that's our mission for this deep dive then, to unpack these undeclared questions.
Explore the different angles in the texts.
And try to uncover the insights hidden in what isn't explicitly stated.
Yeah, it's a bit like a shortcut, really, to understanding a core idea in Buddhist thought.
And how it connects maybe to our own search for clarity. The key thing for you listening is maybe true wisdom isn't always about finding the answer.
Sometimes it's about knowing which questions to let go of.
Okay, let's get into it. Picture this scene. You've got King Pasenadi of Kosala, powerful ruler.
Right.
He's traveling, and he's actively looking for a wise teacher, someone with real insight.
A spiritual quest, in a way.
Exactly. So his attendant goes searching and finds Bhikkhunis Khemā. And she's not just, any nun.
No, the texts are very specific about her qualities.
They describe her as wise, experienced, intelligent, learned, eloquent, and quick-witted.
I mean, that's quite the CV. Definitely someone you'd want to ask the big questions.
And King Pasenadi does just that. He gets straight to the point.
He asks her about the Tathāgata. That's a term for an enlightened one, often the Buddha himself, someone who's thus gone to reality.
What does he ask specifically about the Tathāgata after death?
The four classic possibilities that cover all logical bases, really.
Okay, what are they?
Does a Tathāgata exist after death?
Right.
Does a Tathāgata not exist after death?
Okay.
Does a Tathāgata both exist and not exist after death?
Yeah.
And finally, does a Tathāgata neither exist nor not exist after death?
Wow. Covers all the angles.
Meh.
So how does Khemā, this incredibly wise nun, respond?
And here's our first big aha moment. She tells the king, quite directly, that the Buddha left all these questions undeclared, avyākata.
Just unanswered.
Unanswered.
Yeah.
But she doesn't stop there. She explains why. And she uses these really powerful analogies.
Like what?
She says, okay, king, try counting all the grains of sand in the river Ganges.
Impossible.
Right. Or try measuring all the water in the great ocean.
Also impossible. Why?
Because, she says, the ocean is deep, immeasurable, unfathomable.
Deep, immeasurable, unfathomable. That's a great image. How does she connect that back to the Tathāgata, to why those questions are undeclared?
This is the crucial part. She explains that for someone who is enlightened, the very things we use to define a person, to measure them, so to speak, they just don't apply anymore.
What things are those?
The 5 aggregates, or khandhas. These are form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Are basic building blocks of experience, you could say.
Okay, the khandhas.
For a Tathāgata, Khemā says, these are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, annihilated, and are not subject to future arising.
Wow, cut off at the root, like a palm stump. That's final.
Utterly final. So if a Tathāgata is released from the reckoning by these aggregates...
And they become like that ocean.
Exactly. Deep, immeasurable, unfathomable. The king's questions, based on existence or non-existence in conventional terms, simply don't fit. They don't apply to something beyond those categories.
That makes sense. It's like asking the color of the wind. The category is wrong.
Precisely. And the story gets even better. The king, seemingly satisfied, later goes and asks the Buddha himself the exact same 4 questions.
Oh, interesting. Does he get a different answer?
Nope. The Buddha gives the exact same answers, word for word, using the same ocean analogy.
That consistency is powerful. It really underlines the point.
It shows it's a core teaching, not just Khemā's interpretation. The silence isn't evasion. It's a pointer towards a different kind of reality.
Okay, so that's the ideal scenario the teaching is understood.
Yeah.
But what happens when someone maybe doesn't quite get it, or when they face pressure from others?
Well, that leads us perfectly into the next story, the Anurādha Sutta. It features a monk named Anurādha.
Anurādha. Yeah.
And he finds himself in a bit of a tough spot precisely because of these undeclared questions.
What happened?
He encounters some other ascetics from different traditions, and they push him. They want him to take a stand on what happens to the Tathāgata after death.
The same 4 questions again.
Essentially, yes. And when Anurādha honestly says the Buddha hasn't declared the Tathāgata's state in any of those 4 ways,
How do they react?
they basically dismiss him, call him new, foolish, unskillful.
Ouch. That must have stung.
You can imagine. So feeling unsure, maybe a bit shaken, he goes to the Buddha. He wants to know, did I answer correctly? Was I wrong?
What does the Buddha say? Just, yes, you were right.
He does confirm Anuruddha's answer was correct, but he doesn't stop there. He uses it as a teaching moment to lead Anuruddha to a much, much deeper understanding.
How does he do that?
He brings it back to those 5 aggregates, the khandhas: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness.
Right.
He asks Anuruddha, are these things permanent or are they impermanent?
Anurādha says,
Impermanent, venerable sir.
okay.
Then the Buddha asks if they're impermanent, are they a source of suffering or are they happiness?
Suffering, I guess, if they're always changing.
Anuruddha agrees. Suffering.
So, impermanent and suffering.
Then the Buddha delivers the key question. If something is impermanent, riddled with suffering, constantly changing, is it right? Is it proper to see it as, this is mine, I am this is myself?
The idea of self.
And by now, Anuruddha sees it clearly. He answers, no, venerable sir.
So none of the aggregates are self.
Correct. Then the Buddha pushes a bit more. Can you find the Tathāgata within these changing aggregates?
No.
Can you find the Tathāgata outside of them?
No.
Are the aggregates the Tathāgata?
Also no.
Anuruddha affirms no to all of it. And this leads to the Buddha's powerful summary of his entire teaching.
What does he say?
He says, both formerly and now, Anuruddha, I declare only suffering and the cessation of suffering.
That's it. The core focus.
Exactly. So those big metaphysical questions about the Tathāgata after death, they're just not relevant to that core purpose. They don't lead to the end of suffering.
It really is about focusing, isn't it? Cutting away the speculation that doesn't help with the main goal.
Precisely. And other dialogues really reinforce this. You have discussions between Sariputta and Mahakūrita in texts like the Abyākata.
What do they add?
They clarify why people even ask these undeclared questions in the first place. They say these questions are rooted in the 5 aggregates themselves.
So they arise from our attachment to these components of experience.
Exactly. They arise for people who don't truly understand the aggregates they're arising, their ceasing, and the path to their cessation. Basically, people who haven't fully grasped the 4 Noble Truths.
Makes sense.
And another text, the Pema Sutta, adds that these questions stick around for those who still have lust, delight, affection, thirst, fever, and craving related to the aggregates.
So desire and attachment keep fueling the questions.
Yes. And the Arama Sutta expands on this, saying they arise for those who delight in, rejoice in, and are pleased with form, feeling, etc., because they don't see how they cease. This delight extends to delighting in existence itself, in clinging, in craving.
So for someone who's genuinely let go of craving.
For someone released from craving, there's just no ground, no basis for those kinds of questions even to sprout.
That's a very different perspective. It shifts the focus from the answer to the state of the asker.
Perfectly put.
Now, this brings us to another really interesting figure, a wanderer named Vaccha. He seems almost obsessed with getting definitive answers.
Yes. Vaccha shows up in several discourses, always probing, always asking. In the Āyatana Sutta and Khandha Sutta, he comes to Mahamoggallana and then to the Buddha himself.
And he asks more than just the 4 questions about the Tathāgata, right?
Oh, yes. He brings a whole list of the classic undeclared points. Is the world eternal or non-eternal?
Okay.
Is the world finite or infinite? Is the life principle the same as the body? Or is it different? And then, of course, the 4 about the Tathāgata after death. He wants answers.
So what does the Buddha tell Vaccha about why he doesn't answer these, especially when other teachers at the time did seem to have answers?
This is really insightful. The Buddha points out a fundamental difference in perspective. He says other religious teachers declare positions on these things because they fundamentally regard experience, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, the 6 senses, or the 5 aggregates.
Form, feeling, etc.
Right. They see these as mine, I am this is myself, or they believe there's some kind of inherent self tied up in them.
Okay, so they start from an assumption of self.
Yes. Whereas the Buddha and his enlightened disciples, They see all these phenomena as not mine, I am not this, this is not myself.
That core teaching of anatta, not self.
Exactly. They just don't relate to experience in terms of a self or something belonging to a self. And this fundamental difference in perception is why the Buddha leaves those questions undeclared. They stem from a premise he doesn't accept.
That's a crucial distinction. It's not about the answer, it's about the validity of the question's premise.
Precisely. And then there's another encounter with Vacca in the Kutuhala Sutta where Vacca brings up something else he's noticed.
What's that?
He observes that other teachers, they often predict where their accomplished disciples will be reborn, so-and-so will be reborn in this heaven, or things like that.
Right, providing some kind of post-mortem itinerary.
Exactly. But the Buddha described his accomplished disciples very differently. He says they've cut off craving, destroyed the fetters, by fully comprehending conceit, made an end to suffering.
That sounds final, not like going somewhere else.
Exactly. And this confuses Vacca. How can these descriptions be reconciled? If there's an end to suffering, where's the rebirth prediction?
It's a fair question from his perspective. How does the Buddha explain it?
He uses another great analogy, this time about fire and fuel.
Okay.
He explains that origination, meaning rebirth, is declared only when there's clinging. The Pali word is upadana. Rebirth happens because of clinging, not without it.
So clinging is the fuel.
Precisely. He says, think about a fire. It burns with fuel, right? Wood, oil, whatever. It doesn't burn without fuel.
Makes sense.
And then he gives an interesting example. If a fire is blown a long distance by the wind, you could say the wind is its fuel at that moment, carrying it along.
Okay, so the wind sustains it.
Similarly, he says, if a being lays down this body but hasn't been reborn in the next moment yet, what's the fuel carrying that process forward?
Clinging.
Craving, Tancha. Craving is the fuel. This is a subtle pointer towards the whole process of dependent origination, showing how craving conditions future becoming.
So if an enlightened disciple has cut off craving,
then there's no fuel, the fire goes out, there's no basis for predicting a future rebirth based on clinging.
The analogy really clarifies why the Buddha's description is so different. No fuel, no fire, no rebirth, conditioned by craving.
Exactly.
Which leads us, I think, to maybe the most direct and perhaps most famous instance of silence on these topics, the Atthata Sutta.
Yes, this one is very well known. Vacca, persistent as ever, goes right for the jugular this time.
What does he ask?
He asks the Buddha, point blank, Master Gautama, is there a self?
The big one. And the Buddha's response.
Silence. Complete silence.
Wow. So Vacca tries again.
He does. He asks the opposite. Well then, is there no self?
Yeah.
Again, the Buddha remains silent.
Just nothing. How does Vacca react to that?
He's puzzled, understandably. He doesn't know what to make of it, so he just gets up and leaves.
I can imagine his confusion.
Yeah.
But the story doesn't end there, does it?
No. Ananda, the Buddha's longtime attendant, was there and saw the whole exchange. And he's puzzled too.
So he asks the Buddha about it.
Yes. He asks, Lord, why didn't you answer Vacca's questions?
And what's the Buddha's explanation for the silence this time? It feels different from the previous examples.
It is, and it's incredibly nuanced. The Buddha explains his reasoning very carefully to Ananda.
Okay.
He says, Ananda, if I had answered, there is a self,
Yes.
that would align me with the eternalists, those who believe in a permanent, unchanging soul or self. And that, the Buddha says, is a wrong view. It doesn't lead to liberation.
Okay, so answering yes reinforces a wrong view. What about the other option?
But, the Buddha continues, if I had answered, there is no self,
Then what?
that would align me with the annihilationists, those who believe the self is destroyed at death. That's also a wrong view.
So both yes and no lead to wrong views.
Yes, but there's more. Answering there is no self would have caused even more confusion for Vacca, specifically.
Why for Vacca?
Because Vacca, the Buddha explains, was already bewildered. If the Buddha had said, there is no self, Vacca might have thought something like, oh, formerly I had a self, but now it doesn't exist anymore.
Implying a self that could be annihilated, which isn't the point either.
Exactly. It would just reinforce his underlying, unexamined assumption of a self that could either exist or not exist.
So the silence avoids confirming either side of a flawed dichotomy.
Precisely. And crucially, the Buddha adds one more reason. If he had answered, there is a self, that answer would not support the arising of the liberating knowledge that all phenomena are not self. Sabadama anatta?
That core insight again.
Yes. Affirming a self, even hypothetically, works directly against realizing the truth of not-self, which is essential for liberation. So the silence was the most skillful response.
It wasn't dodging the question. It was refusing to step into a conceptual trap that would hinder understanding.
Perfectly said. It protected Vacca from further confusion and avoided reinforcing ideas that obstruct the path.
And there's one more piece of this puzzle, right? From the Savya Sutta.
Yes, a final clarification, again involving Vacca, but this time with Sabikakana, another disciple.
What does Savya add?
He essentially confirms the underlying reason for the undeclared nature of the Tathāgata. He explains to Vacca that if the very basis for even thinking about or describing a Tathāgata in terms of concepts like form, non-form, perception, non-perception, if that entire basis has ceased, has been uprooted.
Like Khema's palm stump analogy.
Exactly. If the basis is gone, then there's simply no way left to categorize or describe the Tathāgata using those concepts. It's beyond language, beyond conventional designation.
The framework just collapses.
Completely. The silence points to that state beyond our usual conceptual frameworks.
Oh, wow. Okay, so stepping back from these specific stories, we've really gone on quite a journey here into this ancient wisdom, exploring why these really profound questions were often met with silence, left undeclared.
And it's so clear, isn't it? It's not about ignorance. It's not that the Buddha didn't know. It's about profound clarity.
Yeah, a clarity about purpose, about the path, and about the actual nature of reality itself.
These texts really seem to highlight that, true understanding, true wisdom maybe isn't about having a neat answer for every single question we can possibly think up.
Especially the big metaphysical ones.
Right. It seems more about learning to recognize which questions actually help us move forward, which ones lead towards liberation from suffering.
And which ones, however intellectually stimulating they might feel.
Yeah, which ones just lead us down rabbit holes of speculation that don't ultimately help. The focus always comes back.
Back to the practical path.
Understanding impermanence, understanding suffering, and understanding not self. That's the work.
It shifts the whole game from collecting answers to engaging in a transformative practice.
Exactly.
So this leaves us, and you listening, with a final thought to perhaps chew on. A provocative one, maybe. If some of the deepest truths aren't found in the answers we get, but maybe in the questions we learn to let go of.
What assumptions might you be holding on to right now?
Yeah, what unquestioned beliefs about yourself or the world might actually be obscuring a deeper understanding.
What questions in your own life, if you just let them sit there undeclared for a little while?
What new insights might that silence open up for you?